Right. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name's Chris. I'm the general manager of SolarShare. We're a cooperative, and we're talking today about cooperatives um, and about SolarShare in particular a little bit later, but about all cooperatives right now with our friends at the Ontario Co-operative Association. Thank you so much for joining us. I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. I'm super passionate about cooperatives, and we hope that you are or will be by the end of this hour that we're going to spend together. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about SolarShare, then I'll introduce our guest speaker, then I'll talk a little bit more about what SolarShare is doing in the coming little while that we think you may be interested in the context of cooperatives. So to start, here's one of our projects, SolarShare projects. This one's we call Somerville. It's in Brampton. It's on a storage facility, but you can see those beautiful solar panels on top of those various storage facilities. And in fact, so that one's in Brampton, but we have a lot of projects all across the province. We have projects all the way up in Temiskaming, up at the top of the screen there, down towards Ottawa and Arnprior, down through Kingston area and the Thousand Islands, then down to Toronto and the GTHA, around the Golden Horseshoe, out to Western Ontario, and even up on Manitoulin Island. So we have a very wide distribution of projects across our huge and beautiful province. And over the last 15 years, SolarShare was established in 2010. We've installed and are now operating and owning 51 projects across our province, which leading to reductions in greenhouse gas emissions every year. We generate more than 17 million kilowatt hours of clean energy every year as well. And the way that we engage with our members, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more during our discussion following the presentation. We engage our members by having them invest in what we call solar bonds, and solar bonds go to finance those solar projects across our province. So we've raised more than $80 million to date, and we've paid back to our members more than $17 million in interest. And we have a outreach program and our membership about 2,000 and more than 10,000 people in our community and growing. So we're really interested in more community-owned solar. We think distributed energy is a really good idea, and we think community ownership of that distributed clean energy is a really good idea too, because it helps. We can do the things that we want to do in our province. We can generate our own clean electricity. We can benefit from the economic benefits that occur as a result through jobs, manufacturing, employment. And if you want to learn more about what SolarShare does, you can go to our website. Everyone has a website. We do too. Here it is, solarbonds.ca. There you can learn more about our projects. You can learn more about some of the other webinars that we've put on. And we have a bunch of other webinars like about solar for your home and about Ontario electricity policy if you're interested. So we encourage you to go and check those out. We also do blog posts and newsletters, so please sign up for our newsletter, and we get regular, about monthly, updates about solar and what SolarShare is up to in Ontario. Excuse me for 1 second. Excuse me. And one of the things I love about our website is that you can see in the bottom left corner here, I've pulled out a screenshot of one of the parts of our website where you can go and see the real-time performance of our projects. So there's pictures of the sites. You can see how much energy they generated over time. And I think it's a really cool feature if you want to get into some of the weeds about our specific projects. Of course, you can also take a look at our website to understand more about the solar bonds that we offer for sale, and what's called our offering statement, which details all the things you'd want to know about those bonds. So right now we're offering 5 different bonds for sale to residents of Ontario. Whether you're a member or not a member, you're welcome to become a member. If you're a resident of Ontario, for $40 for a lifetime membership fee, and then you can purchase solar bonds whenever you wish. We have these 5 different terms. 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 7-year term at 4% or 3.5% interest. We will sell out of these in the not too distant future. So if you're interested in them, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or my colleague Brian, and we're happy to talk to you about them, or just check out our website, like I mentioned. So super excited. Now we get on to the main event. Our friend Michelle Christmann at the Ontario Co-operative Association is here to tell us more about cooperatives. Really exciting. Michelle's a great speaker, and I think you're going to be really excited and learn a lot about cooperatives. Like I said, after Michelle's done, I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about SolarShare in the context of what Michelle was talking about. If you have questions during the presentation, please put them into the chat or raise your hand, and we'll be happy to try and answer them as they come up. But we really want to have a encourage discussion. Don't hesitate to please interrupt us, and we'll have a conversation about whatever this the question you have. So without further ado, Michelle, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Chris. And hello, everyone. I'll just take a moment and I will share my screen. Okay, can we see that okay? Yeah, okay, wonderful, fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you a little bit about cooperatives. I'm obviously a huge fan of cooperatives, and talking about them and sharing information, getting other people excited is definitely the best part of my job. So I am the education manager at the Ontario Co-operative Association. I've worked there for about 4 years, and I've been in the cooperative sector for about 13 years now, and never going to leave. The Ontario Co-operative Association is a not-for-profit cooperative. We're owned and governed by our members, and that is other co-ops and credit unions operating in Ontario. So our focus is education, advocacy, and also finding ways for co-ops to connect and collaborate so that we can build a stronger cooperative economy in Ontario. So I'd like to do a short land acknowledgement before we get started. So please join me in acknowledging that the land where I join you from today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and Haudenosaunee. This territory is covered by the Williams and Upper Canada Treaties. Let us recognize the deep connections Indigenous peoples have to this land and acknowledge our responsibility to work towards reconciliation and justice in all aspects of care and community building. So let's start with the basics here. So where can you find cooperatives? So this might surprise you. So I'm gonna start by challenging everyone. You're just coming in hot here. So I'd like to pose this question to everyone. How many cooperative businesses do you know of, if any? If SolarShare is the only one, that's okay. You can put it in, but you can use the chat or you can unmute yourself and share if you know of any other cooperative businesses. Let's open it up here. And Chris or Brian, you can let me know if you see anything in the chat.
Vlad says, very interested in working for a cooperative and looking for cooperative jobs. So maybe we can touch on in any places where we can where you know of that advertise cooperative jobs specifically.
Absolutely. Actually, Ontario Co-operative Association does. So you can check our website. You can follow our social media, and I can put a link in the chat before we're done to that. And we often share cooperative jobs. I think CMC, the Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada, also posts jobs in the co-op sector. And at OCA, we also have a Choose Cooperative document. So it's a list of quite a few, if not all, but quite a few of the cooperatives in Ontario. So you can get an idea of all the different industries they're working on, and you can sort of start keeping an eye out and identifying maybe some co-ops where you're interested in working at. Okay, so do we have, have I stumped everyone here?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And that's okay. That's not unusual. So I see Aaron says, you remember when Mountain Equipment Company, yeah, was a co-op. Yep, that's correct. Karma, nice, excellent. Karma's an awesome grocery store, grocery co-op in Toronto. Fantastic. Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing. And don't feel bad if you can't name a lot. That's why I'm here today. Right. So we don't talk a lot about co-ops. We don't hear a lot about them in the media. We don't really learn about them in schools and kind of our daily lives. Co-ops are kind of there quietly in the background doing amazing things, but we don't always know about them. So that's part of the reason why we're here today. So I'm going to give you a couple hints here. So Home Hardware is a retailer cooperative, and it's owned by 1,100 independent store owners across Canada. So I think probably many people think Home Hardware is a franchise. But unlike franchises, co-ops are sort of a ground up organization rather than a top-down business. So rather than having a parent company that has control over the independent store owners and the profit that they generate, um, home hardware store owners benefit from choosing to become members of a co-op. And then they get access as members to shared distribution channels, to increased buying power, to branding and marketing. And those independent store owners collectively own, control, and all benefit from the co-op that they're members of. So I'm going to give you one more example. Anyone ever had any Gay Lee products? Yes, awesome. Okay. So, and I know there's more buzz now with the Buy Canadian, and I think too that's part of the cool thing about co-ops is that Canadian co-ops are Canadian. You're getting products by people who live, work in Canada here. The board is Canadian. So I think it's a really choosing a Canadian co-op is a great way to support the Canadian economy. So Gailey Foods has a robust and expansive system of training and education, communication with all their 1,300 dairy farmers in Ontario, Manitoba that own Gailey Foods, um, so that they're able to give their farmer members a say in how the company is operated. They do a great job of cultivating leadership, cultivating new board members from within their membership, and making sure to touch base with all their regions so that everybody's voice has a chance to be heard. Okay, so we're gonna put your feet to the fire one more time here, and we're gonna have a little quiz. So I thought rather than just boring you by me reading off a bunch of facts and stats, let's get you a little more excited about the co-op sector and about renewable energy in the co-op sector, and we'll do a short little quiz together. So I think Brian's gonna help me out with that. So let's go through and see if we can answer some of these questions, and then we'll review the answers. So we have our first question is the largest renewable energy co-op in the world. Oh, I guess I can take it too. So maybe we'll just give everyone a minute and then we can share the answers. I always think I need some Jeopardy music to play in the background when when I do a quiz. I need to work on that, I think. Yeah. We'll just hear it in our heads. Okay, so maybe a few more seconds. Okay, Brian, how'd we do? Did we get any answers?
Yes, we did.
All right. Do you
Let's
want to
share
share
the
the results?
results.
Let's see how we did.
Uh, can everybody see the results?
Oh, I can only see my quiz results.
Okay.
I can see them.
Okay, can
Yeah,
you
so it looks like, um,
start with question number one? The
yeah,
largest renewable energy cooperative in the world is um, number B. It's Som Energia. That's in Spain, and it's got over 80,000 members. So it's the largest renewable energy co-op on the planet. Okay, so hopefully that inspires you a little bit. So you're at around 2,000 solar share. So you've got a little ways to go, but you can get
Okay,
there.
I
You can
believe in
get
us.
there. Something to shoot for sure. Okay, question two. What percentage of Germany's renewable energy sector is owned by citizens and energy cooperatives? So we have the correct answer is B. So that is 30%. So 30% of Germany's renewable energy is community owned. So again, I think Germany is a leader in the renewable energy sector. So again, looking to other places in the world that are modeling where we want to be. And I think this is what you were talking about, Chris, being able to get virtual net metering, right? And opening up sort of that market and that opportunity for community ownership. Question three, which province in Canada has the most renewable energy cooperatives? The answer is A. So yay, Ontario. So Ontario has led in renewable energy co-op development, particularly in solar and wind. As of 2021, Ontario's home to about 33 active renewable energy co-ops, accounting for about 67% of all renewable energy co-ops in Canada. So we're doing a great job. Well done, Solar Share. Yeah, that's something to brag about. And then lastly, question number four, how many volunteers does the cooperative sector in Canada engage each year? So this may surprise you as well. So the answer is actually C, 90,000. So in 2020, a study by Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada found that there's about 7,000 Canadian cooperatives right now. And they engage, so 7,000 organizations engage over 90,000 volunteers annually in different capacities. So as board members or directors, at operational levels, on committees, and through other initiatives. So I think that's fantastic. And I think that really speaks to that social impact of cooperatives and the difference that cooperatives make and that membership engagement piece that we're kind of talking about today. Okay, so thanks everyone for playing along. Well done. So co-ops exist in all sizes, shapes, and sectors. So we looked at home hardware, retailer co-op. We looked at Gailey Foods. We know obviously co-ops exist in the renewable energy sector. They actually exist in every sector imaginable around the world. So everything from a small co-op with 3 members to co-ops with millions of members. And there's over 3 million co-ops around the world. And there's about 1.2 billion people that are members of a cooperative. So whether they know it or not. So that's pretty impressive impact. So let's talk for a few minutes about where co-ops come from and why do they exist. So a little bit about the history. So cooperation has been a cornerstone of human societies for thousands of years, right? Many indigenous economies rely on shared resources like communal hunting or fishing, and where responsibilities and benefits are distributed throughout a community. If we look at Japan, their Karatsu system has been fostering collaboration among businesses since after World War II. If we look to India, they have a self-help group system that empowers millions of women entrepreneurs through micro-lending programs, education, and training. And then if we look at the Black solidarity economy in Canada and the US, there's a long history of developing cooperatives, credit unions, and mutual aid societies to counter economic exclusion and racism. So we see cooperation everywhere. And then when we think of co-ops today in Canada and what that landscape looks like, we can recognize that it's a combination of those informal systems of cooperation that were brought here, along with this group, the Rochdale Pioneers. So they're often considered the authors of the modern cooperative movement. So imagine it's the year 1844. It's in Rochdale, Northern England. Times are tough. Factory workers struggle to afford even the most basic food and supplies, and they're forced to shop at the company store. That's cheating them with high prices and low quality goods. But what choice do they have? Well, a group of 28 workers decided that they've had enough. So instead of continuing to be at the mercy of unscrupulous factory owners, they take matters into their own hands. So a group of workers start saving, and after 4 months, they pool their money and they rent a small storefront. And their idea is simple but revolutionary. Sell honest goods at fair prices at a store that's owned and run by the people who shop there. At first, people doubt them. They only sell a few items, the basics, flour, sugar, butter. But their fair dealings attract more members, and word starts to spread, and their store grows, and so does their vision. So they create the Rochdale Principles. So a blueprint for operating a business that does more than just make money. It's a business that benefits everyone involved, from customers to suppliers. And this same set of principles, this same blueprint, inspires cooperatives around the world to this day. So what started as just a small shop laid the foundation for a global movement. Word continued to spread, and cooperative enterprises began springing up all across the UK, eventually made it all throughout Europe and around the world. So the Rochdale Pioneers, they didn't invent the concept of working cooperatively, but they did create a blueprint for others to follow, a template, you could say, for structuring a business in a way that allowed for the patrons of the business to share ownership, to influence its direction in a way that reflected their wants and needs, and where they were the ones who benefited most from the business rather than being exploited by the business. So this was very different from the hierarchical system that existed at the time and maybe still does today in many situations. A system where power and control was very top heavy and rights of workers were really non-existent. And the Rochdale Pioneers based their blueprint on a few key areas. So number one, through ownership. So every customer in the shop became a member owner and so had a true stake in the success of the business. Number two, through governance. So creating a business model that allowed every customer to have a democratic right to have a say in the way the business was run. And number three, distribution of profit. So customers would help build and grow the business, and they would share in the profits that their patronage contributed to. So fast forward almost 200 years to today, to 2024. So how does that story resonate today? So here's a similar story of exploitation, again, with folks that were at the mercy of wealthy landowners and business people. So this is the Caroline Co-op. This is an apartment building in Hamilton, Ontario. So I think it started in 2022. The building was up for sale. The landlord was selling it. There was 22 tenants, and they were very worried about the possibility of rent eviction or steep rent hikes. So they formed a tenants association. They got together to discuss options and see how they could help each other. So they actually came across the co-op model during their research, and with the support, they reached out to the Golden Horseshoe Co-op Housing Association. So together they decided to try and purchase the building and run it themselves by turning it into a housing co-op. So and they were successful. So just like the Rochdale pioneers, almost 200 years before them, this group of ordinary people found a way to flip the script. They gained, number one, ownership over the place that they live. They gained the opportunity for governance, to have a say. This allowed all the owners to have a say in how the building that they're living in would operate. And number three, distribution of profit. So again, the members, the residents contributed to the project. They all provided a small amount of capital. And they support the operation and the maintenance of the building through their monthly fees or their rent. And then they benefit financially from lower rent. And they also protect themselves against things like unfair eviction and rent hikes. So let's talk a little bit more about the model itself. So how are co-ops different? How do they work? So I'm going to challenge you again. So I'm interested to know what you think a cooperative is. So how would you describe it? And again, if you'd like to unmute yourself and share, or if you'd like to use the chat, how would you explain what a cooperative is, or what does it mean to you? So we'll give people a minute to maybe think about that and see if anyone's brave enough to enter something in the chat. And if you have to think about it for a little while and you want to enter something in later, that's okay too. So no pressure. We're just about learning here today.
Totally agreed. I think it's interesting, like reflecting on, what I think a cooperative is, and I'm not gonna put my thoughts out there just yet, but I think there's lots of different ways in which I think one could describe cooperatives and cooperation. So I think there's lots of different answers, in my opinion, that would resonate with me when I think about cooperatives.
Absolutely, Chris. And I think that's the amazing thing about cooperatives, is that they all, you see how when people describe them, they pull out what's most important to them. They pull out what resonates most with them. They draw on their experience. So yeah, I mean, you get so many fantastic answers. And I think when you're trying to explain to other people, or you're trying to understand, to even with yourself, what a cooperative is, I think pulling out those things, right, that kind of stand out and are important to you is important. And I think too, people join cooperatives for different reasons, right? Some people, they want to support their community. Some people want to get involved. For some people, it's just a great opportunity. I mean, 4% return on an investment right now, that's pretty darn good, right? So there's lots of different reasons. Maybe it's just for the products and services. So there's lots of different reasons to join a cooperative. So I think that can play in as well to how you communicate and how you understand what co-ops are. So, we have a couple great answers. Orientation towards meeting the needs of the community rather than capital accumulation. That's beautiful, Alex. Yeah, exactly. David, seems that cooperatives have members who get voting rights, but membership seems to be divorced from the level of investment. Whereas a corporation with shares votes go with shares, not share owners. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's that separation between investment and voting power, right? And it kind of levels the playing field a little bit. Co-ops is a way to serve the needs of humans in a way that's not centered around profit growth incentive as it is under capitalism. Amazing answers. Excellent. Yeah, fantastic. That's really good. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, I think maybe some of you can teach this. You'll be doing this presentation for the rest of your members. So there's many unique features about cooperatives, things that set them apart from other business models. But today we're just going to kind of focus high level on three main areas where co-ops do things differently. So number one, I've already mentioned it a couple times, and I think you touched on it well in the comments. So ownership co-ops are businesses that are owned collectively by their members, who are the people who use the business, right? Therefore, those owners have the most to gain or lose from the success of the business. So it sort of ties them together a little more tightly. Number two, control. So members control the direction of the business. They have a say and the opportunity to influence the direction of the business. And the third main difference is purpose. So cooperatives are businesses that are created to fulfill the wants and needs of their members, and to provide benefit for their members. That's the big purpose. Yes, they can make money. Yes, they can help communities. Yes, they provide goods and services, but it's all under that umbrella of serving the members and benefiting the members rather than external stakeholders. So we have in the cooperative world, we have 7 cooperative principles. So this is the legacy of the Rochdale pioneers, a set of principles that all co-ops follow around the world, from the smallest worker-owned coffee shop to the largest agricultural co-ops in the world. They're all following these 7 cooperative principles. They help inform the structure, the governance, and the social impact of cooperatives. So we won't dive too deep into these, but I'll just go over them briefly just so that you have an idea. So these aren't just sort of abstract ideas. These principles actually, again, dictate the structure and the governance models of the business, and they also encourage that social impact piece as well. So if we look at the first 4 principles, these are the principles that are sort of mandated. They're mandated or regulated in your articles of incorporation. They're what the government sort of asks you to do in order to fulfill the requirements of calling yourself a cooperative business. So in plain language, we have number 1, open and voluntary membership. So that says, anyone can join a cooperative. There's no discrimination based on gender, social, racial, political, or religious factors. You can't force anyone to join your cooperative, and you can't force anyone to leave. So you've got to have mechanisms and policies set up for members to join and leave a co-op, what that looks like. Number 2, democratic member control. So lots of people think this is sort of the heart of cooperatives. It's the idea of one member, one vote. So if you're a member of a cooperative, you're entitled to a vote when it comes to big decisions. So members control their businesses by deciding, who runs it, who leads it. Members elect a board. Members vote to change bylaws.
Michelle?
Number 3, member economic participation. Brian, do you have a question?
Yes, there's a question in the chat that I see from Vlad. He
Yeah.
asked if there's an example of a cooperative in Ontario where management is elected by employees. So, for example, yeah, he mentions Mondragon in Spain, but we talk about democratic member control, about how members can, for example, influence like the voting of a board who chooses a general manager who might hire employees. But is there a situation where maybe the employees elect management?
I think when we're talking about co-ops, it's the membership themselves that have that voting power. So if you were a worker co-op where the employees owned the business together, then certainly they would decide together democratically who the managers would be. So in that case, that would be a yes. Does that answer your question? That okay, I hope so. I hope so. Okay, so number 3, member economic participation. So all co-op members invest in their cooperative. So that means that members, not shareholders, benefit from a co-op's profits, right? And it's all sort of tied together. Members can decide through their board where profits are going to go, how they're going to be spent, and in that way sort of contribute to that decision-making process. There. Oh, we have some co-ops popping up. Awesome. And then number four, autonomy and independence. So when co-ops are making business deals, when co-ops are raising money, they don't compromise their autonomy or their democratic member control. So a corporation cannot own a cooperative. The government cannot own a cooperative. Cooperatives are independent and autonomous organizations. They make decisions for themselves. Those decisions are made by the board, which is drawn from within their membership. And then the last three principles really, again, speak to that sort of social impact piece, but they make a lot of sense. So co-ops believe in education, training, and information, so they can contribute to the success of their co-op, right? So making sure their members understand their rights, their roles, their responsibilities, making sure that members and board and the community understand more about the co-op model, right? What are they investing in? What are they contributing to? What other co-ops can we support? How do we build this cooperative economy together? Um, Cooperation among co-ops. So co-ops believe like working together is the best strategy to empower their members, build a stronger co-op economy. So we support other co-ops for our business needs wherever possible. We choose another cooperative business. We support provincial, national associations to help advocate for the sector and things like that. And then lastly, but definitely not least, as concern for community. So I think that's, co-ops really shine in that principle 7. I could have a 2-hour webinar just on that. So co-ops are community minded. They contribute to the sustainable development of their communities. They source and invest locally. They keep money circulating in communities. They give back to their communities. They volunteer. They do all those things. So we're going to take a short journey here, a tale of two businesses. So if we look at a corporation, so we look at Walmart. I'm sure everyone knows Walmart. So Walmart started in 1962, discount department store, started by Sam Walton. He started this business for himself. He wanted to build something for himself, and he had a vision to grow this business and be successful. So within about 5 years, he had 24 stores and was earning 12 million in sales. So he started out, he wanted to have ownership over his own business. He filled a niche in small towns. He had some good business practices. There was actually a Walmart code that the employees had to follow, and it was promoted at Walmart. It was based on values like respect and integrity, strong focus on great customer service. He really treated employees well. They had profit sharing, employee stock purchase plan. There were employees that worked at Walmart for 20, 30 years and retired a millionaire through their stock purchase plan. And I know this because I worked for Walmart a long time ago in the early 90s, when they first came to Canada. And it wasn't a bad place to work. They actually supported local businesses here in Belleville, where I live. Um, uh, I was pretty happy. But, fast forward about 30 years, and the goal of a corporation is to make money, for its shareholders. So they need to keep growing to make more money. Corporations are controlled by their shareholders, whether that's one person or millions of people. And the more shares you own, the more decision-making power that you have. So in this model, control over the business can become concentrated in the hands of the few. And the bigger the business, the more that divide grows between the decision makers and those that are impacted by those decisions on a more operational level. So we're looking at two chair of the boards. Rob Walton is the past chair. He's the son of Sam Walton. He owns over 1 billion shares of Walmart stock. Passed the torch over to Greg Penner, his son-in-law, current chair of the board at Walmart. And he owns over 1 million shares of Walmart. So these are the people that they're steering the ship. They are making those big decisions for Walmart. Do you think either of these people shop at Walmart? Probably not. Do you think they've ever shopped at Walmart? Do you think they know anybody who has ever had to shop at? No, So when they are making strategic decisions as board members, are they thinking about the needs and the wants of the business users or the other stakeholders? Probably not, right? They're likely thinking of their own personal gain and their obligation to the corporation and shareholders, right? To maximize profit. So it's not meant to villainize corporations, but it's the way they work, right? They exist to make money and they make decisions that typically favor the most powerful stakeholders who are often on the board or in other positions of power. So in that way, they don't really serve the needs of, sort of that broader group of stakeholders. So let's compare that with a cooperative. Okay, so here's another journey. Let's go back again to the early 90s, but this time let's go to Barrie, Ontario. There's a group of small business owners. They're all working in HVAC. They would meet for coffee once a month, swap stories, talk about the challenges of being a small business owner with other small business owners who were, experiencing the same thing. Over time, their coffee group kept growing and they realized a couple things. So, A, they loved being independent business owners, and B, they had many of the same challenges, right? And these challenges were making it harder and harder to compete with larger companies, right? Those big franchises that they were seeing more and more. So finally, these entrepreneurs started to wonder, was there a way that they could maybe pool their resources to solve some of these challenges for themselves? Maybe things like bulk purchasing, sharing branding to reduce marketing costs, maybe share some HR and admin support. So some ways that they could all benefit from these shared services without having to sacrifice their independence, their autonomy, and the relationships they had built with their clients and their communities. And they did find a way. So they created a co-op for themselves. A co-op, a business that could provide them with those services they wanted. They would own it and run it together, and they would all have a voice in shaping the business. Um, and they would all benefit from those services that it provided. So climate care has also grown in the last 30 years from just a few members to start to over 30 members in Ontario. And they actually, I just read that they announced some new members and some expansion into new markets. But growth for a cooperative doesn't mean losing touch with your values, with your purpose. It doesn't mean sacrificing your core values for the sake of growth. Or it doesn't mean concentrating power among the few as the stakeholder pool gets bigger. So the board that governs climate care and makes the decisions, that hires the ED, sets the strategy, oversees operations, are the members of the co-op. So those very same HVAC small business owners are the ones that are running the company and calling the shots. Each director is one voice of many other equally important voices and is responsible for acting in the best interests of all climate care members and of the co-op itself. So making sure that members now and in the future will continue to receive the same service and value that they want and need from this co-op. So they have a super engaged membership. They are very passionate about being a cooperative, about their rights as members, and about holding the board accountable for decisions. So they're always seeking input from members so that they can innovate and adapt. And as a result, the co-op consistently operates in a way that's truly reflective of the needs of their members. So, with a corporation, what you typically see is, the directors who hire the manager, who hires the staff. But with a cooperative, there's an extra level of accountability, and that's you, the members. You elected the board. You can also remove the board if you're not happy with them. So there's a level of ownership and accountability in co-ops that just is not possible in the context of a corporation. Okay, so we'll talk just a little bit about governance. So governance refers to roles, responsibilities, and decision-making within an organization. In a co-op, all members are involved in governance because all members are entitled to one vote. And again, that's that principle too. You can't buy more votes. It doesn't matter how much you invest in the company. So you can't buy more power in a co-op. And decision-making power is a right of membership. It's not, again, a result of investment. Members use their vote to elect a board of directors, to vote on bylaw changes or other major issues. And what this actually looks like in practice depends on the size and the type of co-op. So I'm going to give you a couple quick examples here. So in a smaller co-op, here we have the Home Care Workers Cooperative. It's a cooperative it's a worker cooperative owned by PSWs, and it's in Peterborough, Ontario. So a smaller co-op, often you'll see all or most of the members serving on the board. So they're involved in decision making, a little more hands-on. So Amy, Danielle, and Denise here, they are the worker members. They all have an equal say in decisions that affect the business. So they get a vote, all of them, when decisions are made. But when you see bigger co-ops, this isn't always possible. It's not always practical. So in that case, members elect directors from within the membership to represent their needs. And that's where Solar Share is, right? You can't have 2,000 members all getting together and voting on every single issue, right? You've got to delegate. So earlier we looked at, Rob Welton and Greg Penner serving on the board. So this is Jeff, my friend Jeff. He was a board member at Libro Credit Union, huge credit union. It's got about 180,000 members in Southwestern Ontario. He's not a millionaire, billionaire. He doesn't own a million Libro shares. He's just a guy. He owns one Libro share, just like every other board member of Libro, just like every other customer, every owner at Libro. So, he owns a small business in Southwestern Ontario. He banks with Libro, so he's got lived experience as a customer. So Libro invests in training and education for potential and current directors, right? So that's that education and training piece. They cultivate leaders from within their membership so that everyone has a chance to participate. So obviously with an organization like Libro, it's a credit union, it's just like Solar Share. There's some high level stuff and you need some expertise and some special skills. But if you can mix in like Libro did, some perspectives and some lived experience from your members, that sort of gives you a more robust uh, set of perspectives and values to draw from, and it makes sure that you're looking after your business needs and your member needs in a really responsible manner. So we'll talk a little bit about membership in cooperatives and what that means. So when we talk about co-ops, we refer to owners as members. So why? Because they actively participate in the business, right? They're not just investors. And co-ops are defined by their member groups. So in other words, who owns them? So Solar Share is a consumer cooperative. So you're owned by the customers, you're buying an investment share in Solar Share. They can be owned by workers, right? So the employees are owning the business together. They can be owned by producers. So like Gailey Foods, those farmers are owning that business together. And there's a few other models. Those are the big three that we typically see. And the members are the ones who shape the co-op. So they have the power to make the co-op what they want it to be. Co-ops and their members have a reciprocal relationship. So you've got to support each other to be successful. So co-ops are obligated to provide their members with products and services they want and need. And in turn, the members support the co-op financially by using the business and also by helping it run by participating in governance. So a strong membership that's engaged, that participates in governance, it uses a co-op, will help the co-op thrive. And it has the best chance of creating a co-op that the members want to see and that benefit the members the most. So in a co-op, members have rights. So they have the right to serve on the board. They have the right to vote at elections or on big changes that affect them, bylaw changes. They have the right to remove directors if they feel they're not working in the best interests of all the members in the co-op. And they have the right to access financial information. So they have the right to know what's going on, how's our money being used, and those kinds of things. So I think of membership as sort of three different levels of engagement. So you can ask yourself, are you an informed member? Right? Do you read the newsletters? Right? Do you read the blog? Are you checking out the website to see you're checking out your projects and see how they're doing? Right? Do you read the annual report? Do you know your rights as a member? Do you understand your roles and responsibilities as a member? Are you an engaged member? So attending AGMs and member events, casting your vote at elections. Do you volunteer, maybe on a committee, maybe at an event? Do you attend workshops and training like today? So all of you are engaged members. And do you give feedback to your co-op? Do you let them know how they're doing? And lastly, are you an empowered member? So have you run for a board position or do you serve on the board? Do you lead committees or are you involved with member relations? So I know when you look at this sort of mountain, it can look like a lot, but any and all levels of engagement matter in a co-op. All member involvement contributes towards the success of your co-op. So you can do what works for you. Maybe this year you can only have time to be an informed member, but maybe next year you're going to be engaged. And then maybe you'll be empowered and then you have to go back down to informed. So, I think the idea is that there's so much we can't control in the world, but co-ops can give you a chance to influence the businesses you use or invest in. So I'm just going to close out. I know we're approaching 1 o'clock, so I'm just going to wrap up with a couple short case studies, if that's okay. So both of these are from the retail sector. One is a consumer co-op, so it's a co-op was owned by its customers, and the other one is a worker-owned co-op. So even though they're from a different sector, I think they're good examples of the role of members in a co-op's success. So I think there's lessons to be learned here, and they can be applied to any co-op. So lessons learned. So Co-op Atlantic was formed in the 1920s, and it was formed to provide affordable goods to consumers in eastern provinces. The co-op lasted about 100 years, but spoiler alert, it was dissolved. And it grew to be, it was 28 locally owned retail organizations. It was doing really well. In 2014, it had over 600 million in sales. But by 2015, the co-op was facing aggressive competition. The grocery business can be a tough business. They had mounting debt. There was some bad business decisions. So these challenges and how the leadership responded to them eventually led to the co-op's demise. So co-ops need the people involved in their governance to work together, right? The members, the board, the managers, the staff, they all have to rely on each other. And successful co-ops create ways for these actors to work together effectively. Unfortunately, Co-op Atlantic did not. They attempted to help out their financially struggling stores by amalgamating them together. It was supposed to help manage debt and reduce operating costs. And they shifted their focus from customer service and member service to low prices at the expense of that service and also patronage refunds for their members. So that strategy didn't work. So yes, it gave them better control over stores, and yes, it was more efficient, but it alienated the stores, the management, and their members, right? Anytime you alienate your core market, it's a bad idea for business. So had they fostered this culture of trust and collaboration among their members, among the individual retailers, they might have received the financial support and solution from those members themselves, which is often the case, and we've seen in the co-op sector. This type of member engagement is critical to the survival of co-ops. When you lose your cooperativeness, you risk losing the very thing that made you special, right? And that attracted members to you and made them loyal. So very quick, positive power of membership here. This is the Big Carrot in Toronto. It's been around since 1983. So basically a group of people got together, wanted to start their own health food store. Within a couple of years, store was too small. So they reached out to their customers. They raised about $100,000 from their customers because they believe so passionately about it. And then they partnered with a local real estate developer. They moved across the street. To what's now known as the Carrot Common. They have like a separate supplement store, a juice bar, and then they have the grocery store as well. A couple of years ago, COVID was taking a toll. As I said, grocery is a tough business. Equity groups kept approaching the Big Carrot to buy them out. And finally, the board launched a campaign to accept a buyout offer. In response, the worker owners ousted the whole board, voted in a new board composed entirely of worker owners. So that's the difference between a co-op and a corporation. The worker owners didn't want to sell ownership of the store. They didn't want to lose that control. They didn't want to put the decision making in the hands of an equity group that wouldn't care about the worker owners, the staff, the community. So they exerted their rights as members, and they blocked the sale, and then elected a board that would reflect the needs, wants, and values of current and future members. So great story of success for members. So with that, I will wrap up, and thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. That was really, really informative. I see, and I hope all of our friends have enjoyed that. Vlad asks if you wouldn't mind sharing a couple of links for, I think you mentioned the OCA does some job posting for cooperatives and CMC, if you wouldn't mind sharing those links. I'm just going to share before we're done. I know we're almost out of time here. But what I'd like to do is pick up on what Michelle was saying in terms of where SolarShare is at. So SolarShare was established in 2010 through the Green Energy Act. And what happened is the government wanted to allocate some renewable energy contracts to cooperatives, indigenous communities, municipalities, and other private investors. And so right now you can see in the yellow at the top of this screen, what we have is with our members, we're a cooperative, we're democratically controlled. We believe in the cooperative principles. And as Michelle was describing, it's a process of continuous improvement for us at SolarShare to better engage our members, better understand what their wants and needs are, and work with our members to give them what they want. And so right now, because of the way that SolarShare was set up, we're really, members can invest in these projects and they get a return on their investment. But what we're really interested in is providing a good and service to our members. And one of the things that we think, like we were talking about with those renewable energy cooperatives in Europe that have been so successful, is being able to actually sell electricity to our members. So we're not able to do that right now in Ontario. And you can see that if we can sort of close that loop in the white, if you look at the white arrows, closing that loop between working for our members, making projects that generate electricity, selling that electricity to our members, and having our members pay for it in a democratic way, is really something that we're really excited about and want to advocate for here in the province. There's examples in Europe that have been very successful. There's examples in the United States as well. And so we have a petition. We're going to be doing some more advocacy work over the next year or so. But we encourage you to take a look at the petition and sign it if you so choose. And we appreciate your support with that. Ultimately, what we'd really like to do is sell you, our members, clean, distributed, local electricity. So with that, I wanted to say thank you to everyone for attending. Oh, one thing, sorry, forgive me. Our annual general meeting is coming up also on June 17th, forgive me. Please, you can sign up at solarbonds.ca, and we encourage you to come and hear more about the work that we're doing here at SolarShare. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or my colleague, Brian. Invest@solarbonds.ca, or you can see our phone number down there. We always love to hear from you. This picture is one of our sites in Temiskaming. It's a dual access tracker site. You can see those solar panels there just as they were finishing construction. Thank you very much for your attention. We hope this was useful. And thanks again, Michelle, for the presentation. I thought that was really great. We really appreciate it.